And also we're trying to explain some street closures and other restriction, because sometimes MPD, they want to restrict some certain access to ensure the safety. So also we're trying to reduce any pedestrian vehicle conflicts. By the way, I cannot see the chats during my presentation, so feel free to chime in. I'm happy to answer any questions in the meantime. Also, we'll have time for question and answer at the end. So also we're trying to manage some pickup and drop off activity because of all the potential street closures. We want to make sure that rideshare drivers and taxi drivers know where to efficiently drop up and pick up their users. Okay, this is our timeline. So we started this effort earlier in the April, and currently we are in the kind of final stage to actually we're working on our draft. So it's August, right? So we are actually planning for another public meeting. So the first meeting was in June. It was a hybrid in person and online meeting. And then through July, we had online survey. I think Jack was able to share the link with the MAC member. So the survey is currently closed. We're analyzing survey results, but we are working to come up with the first draft, and we're going to have a public meeting in early September. The date is TBD. So we will be sharing what we found so far. That's going to be our first draft, and then we're going to finalize through September, and with the goal of fully implementing the TOPP by the October 1st of this year. So this is a typical TOPP boundary we are thinking, because as you know, Capital One Arena is located between 7th and 6th Street. And usually the F Street between 7th and 6th is a closed during event. That's also done by MPD. So we are not only looking at, the one block boundary, we're looking at the 395 intersection of the entrance, because a lot of, visitors are using the highway. So those are our TOPP boundary we're looking at. So as you can imagine, event day, that requires a lot of DC government agency efforts. So of course, our agency, DIDA, our main role is to manage traffic flow. So we are deploying lots of traffic control officers to make sure that we can control traffic and ensure pedestrian safety. And of course, MPD plays a big role. So they manage the street closure and they provide public safety. So street closure is not done by DIDA, but at the same time, our TCOs, traffic control officers, they work with MPD to make sure that the vehicles are not entering those closure area. Of course, Department of Public Works, they do enforcement for parking, and then make sure that the vehicle is blocking something they can remove by towing vehicle. And also Department of For-Hire Vehicles, they enforce any for-hire vehicle-related operations if they're violating anything. And of course, the big player is Monumental Sports and Entertainment. They are the Capital One Arena big players. So they have their own staff member. They make sure that they offer safety for their patron within their property. So we can talk about the existing condition and what's happening, and then what we are trying to address through this process. So this is kind of a typical event day operations that's happening. So basically, the first image on the left shows the road closure. As I mentioned, the F Street between 7th and 6th, those are closed during event. So as you may already know, if you are a Capital One Arena visitor, they have a big entrance on F Street between 7th and 6th. So car access is limited. You can only, go there by, by walking or wheelchair or like small bike, but the car access is closed. So you can use the entire street. And those are on the left. This is like post-event traffic flow. So as you can see, the F Street is still closed. So MPD officers and traffic control officers, they make sure that their car knows they cannot enter F Street. So they redirect traffic through 7th and 6th. But the thing is, sometimes depending on the size of the event, MPD makes really last minute ad hoc decision to close off 7th and 6th Street, depending on the event. Not all the time, so we don't know when. Then that really requires a lot of effort to make sure we redirect traffic, because they cannot enter 7th, they cannot enter 6th. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot going on. So as you can see, this is the currently F Street. As you know, cars cannot enter, but you see pedestrians are occupying the street, almost like open street. And you see that they are using those barriers. This is the F Street between 6 and 7. Again, the closed areas, lots of pedestrians, of course. And I don't have the actual data with me. Well, when I reviewed our survey, lots of metro users and not surprisingly, not a lot of drivers. And you see those.
Hey,
Yes.
Kelly, it's the other
Yes.
Kelly. I wanted to point something out. Will you have the photo up? So
Mhm.
I've been there as a wheelchair user for events going in where the middle photo is so clogged with people that they're going down into the street and it's very difficult for me to get to the wheelchair entrance. And I just want to point that out since the photo is up.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's in the middle of F Street, right? That's why there's no
Right,
yeah,
right,
only there's
right.
at the end.
And there's actually 2 lines, the way Monumental has been doing it, 2 lines, and then the wheelchair entrance is in the middle. So you have to figure out as a wheelchair user how to get through those lines of people. If there were like a ramp here, if it were totally ramped, it would be less of a debacle. I'm just, as a wheelchair user, just showing kind of the people blockades that happen that you might not think about.
Got it. So if I'm understanding correctly, so you have to enter either 7th Street or 6th Street entrance, and you have to navigate through the sidewalk, right?
Yes.
Got it. So that's why, because since now we have the entire F Street, the street is for the pedestrian now. So if you can use the roadway because it's blocked, and if there's any temporary ADA ramps, it'll be perfect, right?
Yeah. So there's no mid-street ramp here. So if I'm coming on the sidewalk, I am stuck on the sidewalk.
Exactly.
And I have to get through the people instead of there being another easier accessible route.
Thank you so much. I will definitely talk to the Monumental Sports so that they can actually have few, not just one, like few ADA, like put like temporary ramps they can install throughout the area.
That would be great. That'd be a huge improvement.
Yeah, I'll definitely bring that up. Thank you.
This is Naomi. I went for the first time in several years last month. What? Carson, are you saying something?
I think you were just unmuted. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, so I also had the same problem that Kelly experienced, and I just kind of looked for the first security guard I could find because it was very overwhelming and very difficult in my wheelchair. And then one of the guards kind of had to help clear a path for me so that I could get through. So yeah, I definitely agree that some improvements can be made to this area.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. And also a lot of other residents also mentioned about sidewalk crowding, right? And of course, definitely lots of people just standing, just being in a line. Also, did any of you have any experience with like micromobility, like scooters or bike, like blocked on the sidewalk or not really?
Yes, regularly.
Got it. Thank you. Because yeah, that's one of the issues we heard. So we're actually adding more micromobility parking, like the bike rack type of thing, all in street instead of sidewalk, so that they can park in street instead of sidewalk. So
that would be great. That would be great.
All
yeah,
right.
I have a lot of problems with that as well.
Right.
Not necessarily near the arena, but like all
everywhere.
over the city.
Exactly. And I'm I can talk a little bit more about this. If you see any like scooters or those e-bike blocking sidewalk, I know there's a step. Basically, you can call or go to 311.dc.gov, and there is basically a scooter parking report. So if you report it, we DDOT will contact those operators. If it's a Lyft, we call Lyft operator. Hey, this is your user leaving their vehicle on the sidewalk, and they will work with their user to make sure they follow up.
And then back to Kelly's suggestion of kind of mid-block crosswalks or mid-block ramps. This is something that we've talked about a lot. And there are kind of very high volume areas like this one that really need more mid-block kudos, or at least if it's not a mid-block kudo, at least mid-block ramps for people to in wheelchairs to get off into. Another thing that I've noticed is that, especially on game days, there's still a lot of cars that are just like strewn around, whether they're official cars. Fine, I guess. But even some of those official cars are parked in the crosswalk, which is kind of mind-boggling to me sometimes. It's just like, if you're going to park somewhere, at least park legally. And then same way, like, at least let's get rid of all of the private cars. Let's say no parking during these time periods, because even on 7th Street, like, there shouldn't be any parking. No private parking during these times, because essentially what that does is that just makes it worse for everybody, especially people with disabilities.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. So yeah, I mean, I don't have answer yet, but I really agree, especially like removing all the parking around. So I know that around Nets Park and Audi Field, all the meters are associated with the event schedule. So that either they're not able to park during events day or hours, or they have to pay like a lot of money just to pay on event day. So I'll definitely follow up, but I don't think we have that at the moment.
And actually, and I think ideally what happens is it shouldn't be just a ticket. It should just be an automatic tow. For DPW, like, when they do rush hour towing, it's because they mean it. Like here, it's like if you're parked during event day, and especially if you're obstructing some sort of crosswalk or a sidewalk, like obstructing some sort of access, like, you need to be gone.
Yeah, that's actually what a DPW is planning to do. They're going to have a tow truck ready for the event day. That's part of TOPP.
Great.
All right. And then more event day photos. You can see lots of pedestrian crossing, and you see the crossing guard guiding people. And on the right side, you see those mural area, lots of flex posts. Those are the area extending basically the curb size. So that's kind of make sure the cars are not blocking those area. So we are actually trying to add more micromobility or bike racks in that space, so that micromobility vehicles are not blocking and parked on the sidewalk. So lots of travel mode. Definitely metro is the best way because it's right there. The Chinatown Metro is located right in the building. And of course, lots of people are using Metro Center or Judiciary Square Metro Station to walk over because it's only a few blocks away. And those are kind of typical walking routes. If you are coming out of Chinatown Metro Station, you're literally come to the ground and you're there. But also you can walk from the Metro Center Station or Judiciary Square. So this information is important because that's where sidewalk gets crowded. So we want to make sure those areas are safe.
Can I pause here, if you wouldn't mind? So in the bottom left corner of the arena is a major entrance for Metro for escalator. And I just want to point out, you might want to add to your map or planning to think about the elevator for access, for wheelchair access, is midway up the block. And so congestion can be really hard for wheelchair users to go against that walking traffic, if you understand me. People coming out of the arena heading towards that escalator and blocking the way, the only way to get to the elevator. So I just want to point that out for just thinking about it.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm not sure what the best solution is, but then easy way we can do is maybe add some little traffic cone around the area so that people are at least not blocking. But if you have any good idea, just please let me know. I'm definitely try to work with WMATA to see if there's anything they can do.
I have. Oh, sorry, Kelly.
Okay, go
You
ahead,
might
Naomi.
want to mark it on the map as where the elevator is versus the escalator
Got
for
it.
consideration. Go ahead, Naomi.
I'm also wondering, so I had that exact same problem last month, where I exited the first exit I could find, and then I had to go completely around the block to get to the elevator. And it was very stressful and difficult for me in my wheelchair. And I was in my wheelchair and my friend was in her walker. So we had a hard time. I'm wondering if there was a better exit from the arena that we could have used. And if so, if there could be better signage to find an exit that would have brought us closer to the elevator.
That's great idea. So yeah, I'll definitely make sure that we can add those little elevator icon at least so that people know which exit entrance are the best for, wheelchair or any like stroller users.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Also, is it possible to shut down more? So, like at least maybe some of the parking lanes, or maybe even a travel lane, just so that that expands the amount of space that pedestrians can use. So, like let's take 6th Street, just push out the maybe basically that adds like 10 feet worth of sidewalk.
That's a good point, but 6th Street is a little tricky because 6th Street has the bus parking on near the building side, and also there's a garage entrance, so it's not technically safe to extend that way. And 7th Street, sometimes it's actually just shut off, like like F Street, so it becomes like open street. So yeah,
The just more opportunity we have. I mean, I think we brought this up too. Like, ideally, F Street and G Street around that area is just closed permanently, so that it's fully pedestrianized, because it's so well served by public transit. But the more that we can, if traffic engineers aren't willing to do that, then at least shut down some lanes so that we can get more space for pedestrians. Because essentially what happens is that, if you're forcing all of the pedestrians just on the sidewalk, and you have, not even much car traffic going on in that time, like you've got, hundreds, if not thousands of people on the sidewalk and just a few people in the cars. And then anyone in a wheelchair or anyone with a disability has to navigate in this tiny little space. But we have all of this space left over for cars that we just didn't really think about, just taking, okay, maybe it doesn't make sense for all of this space to be allocated to cars, where just a few people going in cars versus thousands of people actually on foot.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. I'll definitely bring that up. So the next slide is about the bike share and scooters. Those are existing capital bike share stations. As you can see, those e-bikes are still on the sidewalk, which is a problem. So we are adding more racks in those extended curb area so that those micromobility vehicles are off the sidewalk. So this is our play of kind of pilot location, because we wanted to.
Sorry to interrupt one more time. So there's so that is something we fully support, of getting this scooters and bikes off the sidewalk so that they're not obstructing people. There's actually quite a few locations around here that are often blocked by parked vehicles. We're breaking the sightline laws. So basically, actually, I think right across the street at the Portrait Gallery, there's a crosswalk, and people park right up against that crosswalk. That's dangerous and also illegal. And that turns out to be a great space to put more scooter corrals, bike racks, to actually physically, get us back into compliance with the law, so that and the spirit of the law, so that people who are crossing that crosswalk can actually be seen by anyone who's driving. So that I highly encourage, because there's actually quite a few locations in this highly pedestrianized space where either the district has chosen to violate the law or drivers have chosen to violate the law. So if we can and actually enforce the DC sightline regulations that are already codified to keep us safe, if we can do an audit, make sure that we're actually following the law, so that people can be seen, and we can actually kill two mosquitoes with one slap here, by getting both us back into compliance, but then also get scooters and these bikes off the sidewalks, because we can put those corrals to mandate daylighting and enforce sightline regulations.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I'm not sure when was your last time visiting this area, but we recently added more murals and those flex posts around the area, especially 7th and G and F. So there are multiple locations where we're actually adding more corals. So I agree with you.
Right.
I think maybe you're talking about more G Street or F Street.
Yes, 100%.
Yes, exactly.
100%.
Yeah. So we don't have murals there yet, definitely, but I see the potential and definitely bring that up as well.
Great, thanks.
All right, so the pilot location, this is actually the G Street where you see the small restaurants there. And we try to see if this location is good for like rideshare. So during the playoff week in April, we basically remove all the parking where you see on the north side, and then make that area no parking zone and only allow rideshare vehicles. But of course, it was kind of last minute decision. It was not well messaged through the visitors, so it was not perfectly used by all the users. Of course, the drivers are not really sure what to do. Also, we got comments from the businesses right there, and also the business improvement district. So we realized G Street is not the best option, and also a lot of people are using 7th and F instead of 7th and G in terms of the location. So we're currently thinking of using F Street between like 9th and 7th for the Pudo zone. So basically, we're gonna remove parking on that side so that the area is available for drop up and pick up only. So that's not finalized, but you will see it as part of our first draft in the next few weeks.
And I think other folks chime in, but I think that should be permanent, because this is a highly pedestrianized area, not just during events, but all the time.
Yep.
And is super well served by public transit. Like this should be all the time.
Yep. Actually, we are. Yeah, definitely. So we're gonna just basically put the no parking sign, because we don't currently do the Pudo sign because we did pilot during pandemic, and there were ADA issues, as you can imagine, because we cannot provide all the ADA. I mean, I think Zach, you can chime in, but basically we didn't meet the requirement, so we no longer do Pudo zone signs, but we can still put the international no parking sign, basically P, and then those cross off sign. That means parking is not allowed, but standing is okay for active loading and unloading of passenger. So we are trying to make that area more available for pickup and drop off rather than parking. So it's going to be permanent, not only for the event day if we do it.
Quick question: is one of those or some of those areas, are they going to be marked for wave access? And by wave, I mean wheelchair accessible vehicles. So as someone who takes waves, taxi and Uber, they need space to roll out the ramp for me to board. And usually it's better at the end of a block, like near a curb cut.
Mhm.
And oftentimes in these chaotic post-event situations, I've had a lot of trouble finding a safe spot to load or unload. And it would be great if there was a wave only, at least one spot where waves knew where they could go and meet me and find me, and I knew I would be safe loading and unloading.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'll follow up internally, but I think as of right now, we don't have actual sign policy that actually can designate area for ADA accessibility, loading and unloading, or pick up and drop off. However, I'll follow up, and I think currently what we are trying to do is to make one block no parking zone, meaning you can still use the corner area where the crosswalk and the ADA ramps are. But I'll check if there's anything further we can do.
Yeah, sometimes hospitals have ADA loading areas that are signed, and I'm wondering if maybe that kind of signage could work for, one or two spots.
Yeah, I understand, but that's more
So
for
this is Zach. I'll just say the accessible parking team is working on that to provide
Okay.
access, especially for wave vehicles at the end of those blocks. Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And all right, of
Go
course.
ahead. Lizzie, you had your hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no worries. I thought you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. Sorry. Okay, so this is just existing parking, so meter parking. So the rates change based on the needs, demands. So during rush hour, it's a more busier hours. Its hourly rate is higher than the non-busy time. And these are existing private garage parking, including the Lexus garage within the arena. So those are, this is actually on 6th Street and where the loading dock and Lexus garage entrance is. So yeah, so far we only looked at all the existing conditions. I didn't share any like final decisions yet because we're still working on it. So in the next 2-3 weeks, we'll announce the next public meeting date. It's going to be 2nd week of September. So we're thinking either September 9th or 10th. So it'll be either it'll be hybrid version, so in person and online virtual meeting. So feel free, please join. So we'll be sharing what our current plan is. Of course, this you still have opportunity to chime in and provide comment. So yeah, and then we are trying to implement this TOPP by October 1st because they are new. The new season starts on that day. So we want to make sure all government agencies are ready to implement TOPP for safe operations. Thank you. Any questions?
So I know Lizzie had, I think she's having some microphone issues, but other folks maybe go ahead and ask questions. Anybody else?
Thank you for letting us interrupt as you went, because I think it was helpful to look at the things you were. I was wondering, would it make sense for you to come back and talk to us in October, and we could give you feedback on the existing plan or the draft plan, or September? I don't know what the time frame is, but just
Sure.
Oh.
What I think it would be the best way will be for you to attend our next public meeting. That's going to be 2nd week of September. I'll definitely make sure to share. So it'll be virtual and in person. So that way, I want everybody to hear your concern as well. So this is it's going to be your last opportunity to provide comment. Of course, I'm going to follow in the meantime as well. But we're pretty in the tight schedule, so we want to finalize by end of September.
Sure.
So we will have final version by then. So of course, you will have the full document online. And this document is not going to be perfect, right, by any chance, but we are going to update every year because every year the event changes and things change. Of course, it's not going to be overhaul. It's more like updating every year. So you will definitely get more opportunity moving forward.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate it. And I'm excited to think about kind of reimagining these things. So that's really cool.
Definitely. Are there any, so, F Street a long time ago used to be closed. It used to be pedestrianized, and then they converted into through traffic. I mean, we're a grid, so like people can drive around. And in fact, we don't want people driving through downtown. Maybe we want people driving to downtown, but we definitely don't want people just driving through. That adds nothing and just makes everybody's life worse because it's unsafe. It continues to, we continue to have a pollution problem, all of these bad things that happen because people are just driving through. So this is kind of a good opportunity to really think, especially, as Monumental is like making this new investment to this is a great opportunity to think about pedestrianizing some blocks. Is that, where is that in the conversation?
So to be really honest and transparent, I don't think that's part of the TOPP at the moment, but that can be more so maybe because as you mentioned, this is not really event related, right? Those permanent closure, because this TOPP is really focusing on the event day only operation, make sure, because that's kind of a odd, it's not a normal operation, normal condition because of those events. So we want to be ready for those conditions. But I think the permanent closure is another story. So I think we need separate conversation for that.
What's
And I
the
will
best
say
way
the
to
office.
start?
I was just going to say the Office of Planning I know is working on their downtown plan where they're considering closing streets, and I know we're part of those conversations too. So I don't think we've come out with any concrete suggestions or concepts or ready to talk to the public, but I will say yes, Kelly's plan is for event day only, but we are in conversations with Office of Planning about sort of pedestrianizing those streets and more, especially as the mayor talks about revitalizing downtown.
Cool. Yeah, I went to their event here. It was actually here at MLK. And they actually still showed a bunch of parking, still showed a bunch even on 7th Street, and on F and G, and even on 8th, which is like, if there's one street to be like begging to be pedestrianized, it's 8th, and they're still like, they're talking about basically just switching the orientation of the sidewalk and the parking, which is kind of amazing. Yeah, we definitely, like, if that comes up, we definitely would like to be part of that that conversation, just because, you know, if there's anywhere that, like, you know, all of us on the council don't drive, and so we live here and we don't drive, and you know, when there's just parking that's and travel that's being oh, I'm sorry, Lizzie, but when there's parking that's being prioritized, you know, you're prioritizing car traffic and car parking, which is disproportionately used by people who don't live here, and also people who disproportionately are not disabled, versus throughput, versus a throughput of much higher and better uses of our street space, like sidewalks, like bus lanes, and you know, there are just many better uses, and that's something that, you know, putting aside bus lanes for obviously doesn't work during pedestrianization, but you know, this is the absolute best set of blocks in terms of public, in terms of transit accessibility in the city. So like, this is kind of an obvious place for us to really be thinking. You know, a lot of cities have already done this. They have, and a lot of actually much less progressive cities have already pedestrianized parts of their downtowns, and kind of we're really overdue to start doing that here. Lizzie, was that you joined? There's a number 503. No, maybe not. Okay. Any other questions for Kelly? Anybody else?
Hello.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so you can hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. I was just confirming there was like lots of buttons to push. I'm on. This is me, Lizzie.
Perfect. Do you have any questions for Kelly?
No, it's OBE. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. Well, Kelly, thanks so much for this, and you know, and again, like, you know, please take our feedback seriously. I know you do personally, and it's just, you know, like, for every person who's thinking about parking, they've got options. But for people who don't have options, and especially for just kind of, you know, if you can implore the other people, you know, while they're developing this plan and finalizing, just like, put yourself in a wheelchair, put yourself in a you know, think about yourself with a blindfold on, think about yourself without the ability to hear, and really consider those folks while they're you know, in this planning process. So yeah, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'll definitely share the meeting information in the near future.
Okay, great. Thanks again, Kelly.
Thanks.
Okay, so wanted to follow up on a few things. So back to the agenda, we're thinking about following up on a couple resolutions that we've passed already, and then going back to our document about draft principles. So the resolution that we had passed was asking to be consulted on all capital projects that DDOT undertakes. Zach, has that gone to the required people? Has the message like made it to the required people?
in terms of being consulted on all capital projects.
Yeah, we haven't. I haven't heard from anybody, and we haven't gotten any documents from anybody.
No, no.
Okay, so what we have now is, so we just got our embosser. So we have also a FedEx account. So what we can do is we can print out the resolution, add a cover letter, and send it to everybody. So we can send it, like, depending on, we can start with maybe, do you have a list of the people who manage the capital project, so we can just send them individual letters, and we can also email them?
Hey, this is Adrian. I sent you an email with some suggestions, and I never heard back from you about the document. Did you ever get that about, like, maybe adding some of the information I had pointed out?
Yeah. We'll come back to that. Thanks
Okay.
for that, Adrian. We'll definitely come back to that when we get to the document.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess I apologize. I thought these were still draft, not finalized. So if
Oh, they're fine. Yeah. So this is just a
if this
that was just a one
passed,
sentence.
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll definitely. I'm trying to think of the best way to do it. I don't think it would be every sort of capital project manager. It might just be the chiefs and Sharon, and yeah.
Yeah, just as long as, like, basically, like, it would be great to just get a just make sure before we get to whatever, I guess there are capital projects in the pipeline, and they're in kind of various stages, between 30% and 65%, and kind of well before that as well. So basically, at kind of whatever stage, ideally we're being consulted very early in the process, but some of them are quite progressed. So yeah, basically anything that's not done, and yeah, if they can shoot us an email so that we can engage with them.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Let me have some time to think this through. I think there's a way to do this and to make sure that your input is considered at the very beginning.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And then anything that's kind of further along in the process, we definitely don't want to be left out on either. But in the, obviously in the future, for future projects, definitely, ideally it's beginning. But for projects that are further along, we still definitely don't want to miss those either.
Okay.
Perfect. And then, if we can send the physical, so we can email people, and then also send the physical copies. Like, maybe can you just send me an email with, like, who it should go to?
Sure.
Perfect. And we'll send them to council also, so that they have a copy of our resolutions. Then the other resolution on a citywide sightline audit. We had talked about the public space, or I'm sorry, the curbside branch manager coming to talk to us. Any update on that?
I put in the request, and I can follow up
Perfect.
with her for some time within the next couple months. Yes.
Perfect. That's great. And I'll do the same thing with the with that. That one I think is more simple. We can just, like, send it to her.
Yep.
And we can send it up her chain so that everybody has a copy of the resolution. Cool. Those are the two that I wanted to follow up on. Anything else that, before we go to the draft principles document that we had talked about last time? And Adrian, this is where we can put we can talk about your suggestions as well. But anything else that folks wanted to talk about, besides besides the two resolutions that we just followed up on? Okay, cool. So then let us go over to our draft principles. And yes, okay. Perfect. Okay, cool. Have folks had a chance to okay, cool, great. I see some. We can do some active editing in the document too, and there was a suggestion last time that we just kind of drastically simplify. We could do that as well, and that's something that yeah, we can and should talk through. So yeah, so what do kind of maybe big picture comments first? Like kind of how are folks feeling about the document?
I said when I read it, I thought it was pretty good. I just had those suggestions that if you could pour over if you thought that they might have been beneficial to the document, or they would add to it, or whatever your
Yeah,
thought
so
process was.
yeah, so let me pull up your email, Adrian. Yes.
And again, those were just thoughts. Like, I'm not sure. I mean, it's up to you all how y'all feel about them.
Yep. So yours, okay. Yeah. So this is what Adrian says. I think there should be some discussion of safety of PWDs, person with disabilities, as well as some dangers that we face and government understanding that we are more vulnerable. We deserve protections and accommodations. So we're safe. There needs to be criminal statutes and law enforcement agencies involved regarding these matters. So I so I don't disagree. I'm just wondering if this is the right so my kind of thought with this draft principles document was that we basically say, okay, for any street, for DDOT periodically redesigns streets and does these street shaping, or also does more minor changes. Like if you have a curb to curb, you have X number of feet that go from curb to curb, or even from building to building. The width of the road is anywhere between 30 and 70 feet. What should go into that street? Like what should the street prioritize? Like what goes in first? What's the first thing that we need to make sure that exists in the street? Well, the first thing that should exist in the street is a great sidewalk. The second thing that should exist in that street is a dedicated transit lane. So that's my thought in terms of like the purpose of this document is like physically what should be on that street. In terms of enforcement, I'm definitely not opposed to a stepped up enforcement. It's just that I'm not sure if something related to enforcement goes in this document.
I see. Yeah. I mean, but what about still just talking about, just sort of giving some background about, some of the things that may have happened to people with disabilities. I mean, I guess my thought process is like, what exactly is this document for? Like, who is it being presented to, and what is the purpose? I guess maybe that's what I'm getting mixed up. I thought you're like maybe sort of creating like a document you were going to give the powers to be but might be able to make some of these things happen. That's what I thought the document was. Is that not the case?
Yeah. So my thought is for this document, this is basically like this is something that every it's basically our way of putting a flag in the sand to say, hey, this is, every street, like DC's streets are hostile right now. They're like very hostile and they're very inequitable. Why are they very inequitable? In general, there's tons of parking and that are generally used by people who don't live here and don't have disabilities. And those same places, and also lots of travel lanes. And if you don't drive, you don't have a car, or if you're just trying to cross the street, there's lots of places that are like very hostile. And in order to make our streets less hostile, if we're fully reimagining streets, this is what they should look like. The most important things, like, you know, in order of priority, these are the things that really have to be there. So, like, for example, in no situation should there be parking without an ADA drop-off spot. Like that should not exist. We should definitely have ADA drop-off spots as a, like, way before we have just regular old parking. We should definitely have, especially on the big arterial streets, we should definitely have dedicated bus lanes, because that's how that is by far the most, you know, accessible vehicle for people with disabilities. Or you know, we talked about getting people who are scootering and riding their bikes off the sidewalks. So so getting protected bike lanes so that people don't use their scooters and bicycles on the sidewalks and making it dangerous for people on the sidewalks, just getting them off the street. That should be ahead of regular old parking, but it should be after ADA PUDO. These are the types of things that we had talked about.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was those are some of the things that we had talked about, and that's kind of the idea for this document is, you know, this is something that we can give to all of the engineers and also to council and to different folks and say, hey, this is our statement on what should be in a street, and what should be prioritized in a street. You know, and you know, under no circumstances, for example, should there be a place in DC with businesses or a place that we go to without a great sidewalk. Like, that is the absolute most important thing that a street should have, because otherwise we just can't even get to places. So that's the type of thing that this document, I think, will help with.
That was helpful, because I think with that in mind, I think we can make it longer and maybe prioritize things. I was thinking, oh, we need this is like high impact. We got to be short. We got to be concise. But to me, that explanation, Karthik, was helpful to think about, okay, well, maybe it should be a list of priority.
I mean, because I guess my thing is, like, if you're going to present this to the powers that be that can make these things happen, we should sort of try to concisely include everything that we've talked about, or all the different priorities and different things we want in there. I mean, that's just my thought process. And then that might open up the dialogue about, okay, well, this is what they want, or these are the things they considered. This is how we can get from point A to point B, or etc. I mean, but again, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I think, like, in terms of enforcement, I think there's another document that we can and should write on enforcement. Like, these are the things that we think are, like, you know, there's an infrastructure piece about what the street should look like, and then there's also, like, the enforcement piece about what government should be doing to make sure that people with disabilities are actually being kept safe within the infrastructure. And I think there's a whole nother document that we write about, like, this is how we think DPW, MPD, this is what those people should be doing. And that's our statement, that's our flag in the sand to DPW and MPD.
Because I guess my thing is, like, if you want to say about what the streets would look like, in my mind, like, living in downtown DC, I live in Logan Circle, what the street should look like is like all these bikes everywhere. I mean, because, like, if you walk up and down a lot of these streets, I mean, it's like scooters everywhere, bikes. Like, like just today, I've almost got hit by 2 mopeds. I mean, that's like, you know, that's just like living in a busy area. And so, like, every time I turn around, like when I get to go walk somewhere, it's like just scooters, like someone's like they're just lined up. And then sometimes
I mean, that's exactly part of it.
I would sort of say it's like, what we would like to see is no scooters being parked and, just randomly anywhere through the sidewalks.
Oh,
like,
100%.
Yeah, people literally
100%.
just park the scooter like right in the middle of the street. And, like, if you have a visual impairment like we do, you know, you're trying to focus on all these different things, like you walk into stuff, and you know, then you got the people, everybody's in a hurry, so it's just so much going on.
Yeah. No. That's exactly part of it. So, for example, like bullet number 5 is bike and scooter parking to get scooters and bicycles off the street, off the sidewalk. 100%. Like that is a usage of street space that we want to see, so that like if we force the scooters and bicycles to be parked off the sidewalk because they're geofenced into these corrals, that's a win. Like, and that should be prioritized before regular old parking.
And I see, you know, so like, is there anything about anything that is like saying, like, no, you know, people not using these vehicles on the sidewalks, and you know,
So
pedestrians?
So exactly. So the thought is here is like, what these are the uses that would get people off the sidewalk. So one, if they're protected bike lanes and protected like micro mobility lanes, that will get them off because my guess is that most people who ride scooters don't actually want to be on the sidewalk. They're on the sidewalk because it's too unsafe to be on the road. So if we can give them a safe place to use their thing, then they're less likely to terrorize people on the sidewalk. And then same way, if we put scooter corrals and bicycle corrals outside of the sidewalk in place of parking, then that will get all of these bicycles and scooters off the sidewalk. And that's the infrastructure changes that we can make in order to get the scooters both off the sidewalk during operation and also off the sidewalk during their being parked. So that's the thought process there. But Lizzie, you had your hand up. Go for it.
And you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. So my having just quickly reviewed this while we were chatting, and sorry for causing chaos with edits in parallel. My instinct was actually that one way to think about this would be to be flip-flopping what I think is a really lovely set of principles at the bottom of the document, which I think to me are right, like guiding core principles of when we are thinking about what we want DC infrastructure to look like. We want it to go through this lens, followed by how could this manifest in the context of DC, and then listing the like 1 through 9 or whatever it is that gives concrete examples of how we manifest those principles. And to me, I think that one, it just makes it a more valuable document for our key stakeholders and partners, but two, it just grounds us in like the high level, and then it, you know, the second portion can be more like, here are some examples and, you know, of how this could go, but it leaves us more open for that to evolve and mature over time as we're in a dynamic space. Over.
Yeah, I quite like that. What do other folks, Naomi and Kelly, what do you guys think about that? Basically, and Lizzie, correct me if I'm wrong, is basically take these principles. So like first and foremost, separation of the most vulnerable and disabled users from motorists. That is the most important, or that is a very important principle. And just make these statements up front, and then we say, okay, flowing from that, this is how we would do a street prioritization, knowing that these the things that I just highlighted in blue are things that don't change. Like it's always going to be the case that we want to separate disabled
I would
users
basically frame it as like this document, the header becomes principles for accessible transportation and infrastructure or something like that. And then it lists these. And then the second component of the document, and here are examples of how these principles can be actioned in the context of the District of Columbia when we're specifically talking about, you know, our groups. So it's actually making the document one step higher level, and then we're using what was the initial content as sort of just an example. Obviously, like we're still all putting our weight behind, but it just makes the document a little bit broader.
Yeah, I like that. What do folks think about that?
I like that a lot. Naomi had to go, but I'm assuming we'll send this out again for for a revision, but I like that framing.
Cool. I think it's worth, I know we've kind of turned on this kind of a bunch over time, but I think it's worth getting this right, because this is something that we can continue to point back to. Like every person who comes and speaks, like we can point to like, hey, like this is our principles. These are our principles. This is our principles. And I think this, I quite like. Yeah, and I think if this delays us for another month, I think that's okay, because I think we should get this right.
Yeah, and I like what Adrian suggested about laying some groundwork. I think we can do that a little bit more at the top, and I'm also very interested in, after this, working on that enforcement court kind of stance document as well. I think that's really important.
I mean,
What if
because
we
when
do
you
this
talk
in
about
parallel?
laws, you want to talk about like the purpose. So I think discussing like just briefly like some of the issues that we people with disabilities face, like why this group even got together, why we're here. Like when you talked about the deaths, the people that's gotten killed, you know, that's the type of stuff that I feel like these people need to hear. Like, oh wow, these people gotten hurt in these circumstances, or people gotten killed in these circumstances. You know, these are the type of things we want to prevent. Just like even it's just like a blurt or a paragraph through the sworn saying like, what is the purpose of this group, or what are the purpose of these principles? Why are we here? Why are we getting together? What do you want from telling them what we want from them? Because like when I deal with like high level people and people that make sure they're so busy, they really want a lot of times like, well, what do you want from us? Why are you here? What is your priorities? Why are you talking to us? So we can figure out why we should help you. Kind of trying to convince them like why they should make these things a priority. And so like, because I remember you talking about those deaths, I was like, wow, I didn't realize that many people have gotten killed in the city. Disabled people have gotten killed or hurt in the city due to these type of issues that we're facing that we've been talking about the last couple of years or so.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think also the assumption of safety that I don't feel like I have when I'm going out in the street that my husband has. And kind of bringing that awareness that, people want to make that assumption in their community that they're going to be safe when they go out on the sidewalk.
Yep.
And I loved your slides that you presented at the commission meeting. I mean, I just want to carry them around in a backpack or something, because to me it was so foundational. We can't get to work, we can't get good housing, we can't do a lot of things in our life if we don't have basic mobility.
Yep. What if we, so two things. So one, okay, let's take another turn. Maybe if everybody can, like, maybe we can aim to lock this down, and maybe what we can do is ideally go back and forth during the course of this month, so that at the meeting we're just checking off like, hey, yes, we're good. For this document, and then maybe we also in the meantime start a second document on enforcement and our enforcement priorities. Like DC has these agencies who do enforcement that are supposed to keep us safe. We think that like these people should be prioritizing X, Y, and Z. How do folks feel about that? Go for it, Lizzie.
Oh, was my hand raised? It's not supposed to be. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Cool. So I think so. So how about that? So how do folks feel about that? So like let's like over the course of this month, before the next meeting, let's go back and forth on email and see if we can get this to final draft or final-ish draft, so that at the next meeting we can actually like put this to bed, put this on the website, and shout it from the mountaintops. That these are our principles, and we can remove draft from this, and then also we can start an enforcement doc.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool, awesome. Does anybody else want to take the lead on the enforcement doc?
I mean, I don't know if I have time to take the lead. I mean, but I'm more than happy to try to sort of draft something, and or somebody wants to take the lead, and I can work
I mean,
with that person. I just don't know if I don't want to commit myself because I got a lot of stuff going on with my career and personal life, so I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. But I'm more than
yeah.
happy, help out with it. But I don't really want to take the lead per se.
Yep, I'm happy to. I would prefer that I don't, but I can definitely start a draft and have a framework. I would be so happy if someone else wanted to take it.
Well, how about this? Like, if you want to work on like if you want to have I can give you a call one day. We can kind of talk about how we want to frame it, and then if I feel comfortable, I can have enough time. I don't mind taking the lead on it. If we want to have that discussion, it's not a big deal.
Yep. Okay. Cool. So
And I have
I'll
an
create the
email.
document. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Let's stay in touch by email, and then I can include everybody else on the email, all of the other council members on the email as well, and then we can go from there. Cool. So those are the items that I had on my agenda. Is there anything else that folks wanted to talk through? Any other ideas, kind of priorities? Anything else that folks have?
I'm trying to think. It's come up. I just thought about how last summer and this summer we had some pretty big storms that affected, lots of downed trees on sidewalks and all that kind of stuff. I'm wondering if it would be helpful for us to think through, or have someone come present from DDOT about what the process is for cleanup and identifying problems, after a storm and prioritizing that stuff. I don't know.
Totally. Yeah, well, I'm not sure. Does DDOT or DPW do down trees? Zach, do you know?
DDOT does. Yeah.
DDOT? Okay.
DDOT does. Okay, cool.
And I was thinking about that as far as snow too. I was like, is there like an umbrella at DDOT that handles these emergency situations that we should hear about or understand?
Yeah, snow, it depends. It's not clear. Yeah.
Okay.
Snow varies.
Maybe focusing on big storm recovery kind of thing would be more helpful.
But trees, yes, we could.
Trees? Okay.
We could, get someone from urban forestry.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. So we've got a kind of a running list of folks that we would love to connect with, of curbside management, urban forestries would be great. It would be great to actually have like a full meeting with the director if possible. I think we had like a very abbreviated one. And then anybody else that we wanted to talk through or talk to? Any other parts of DDOT? We can keep this list running. This will come up. I'm sure at some point following up with the TOPP. This TOPP would be great, but and then once capital projects start to really we start getting documents and digging in, that will be like a great way for us to engage. So hopefully we'll start to see a stream of folks start to come and consult with us on that front as well. Go for it, Lucy.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to put my hand down now before I forget. I would just, I know that I don't mean to be a broken record on this, but I would really hope that we can start to create some space to be thinking about how we're, really bringing equity to this lens. And so if I'm not privy to the other offices that might be relevant here, but to bring some folks into the conversation to challenge us to be thinking about how do we take these principles that apply them to the most vulnerable in DC and
Mhm.
potentially challenging us to be thinking about things that maybe we're also not thinking about already. So I don't know if, you know, there are offices on like racial or social justice or like anything like that, you know, folks who might be, you know, like a little bit tangential to our focus here, but that could be bringing their voice in that we could be listening to and maybe just creating some brainstorming space.
We do have, so there is, so Zach's director reports into, is Lakeisha on? Because I think,
I don't
no,
think
I
she's
don't
on.
think she's on. I don't know. That's actually a great point. It's like maybe we hear from, because her title is Chief Equity Officer. Is that right?
It is. I get the point that Lizzie was trying to make, but I think the persons with disability, the MAC, is a big vulnerable group, and so, you know, highlight your voice as much as possible. I'm not trying. I understand intersectionality. We can definitely talk to someone from the mayor's office of racial equity to come in and workshop these principles as well. But I would also say, you know, this group, you should take the reins here and sort of lead. I would.
Yeah, so let me like color my
I would
comment just a
definitely
little bit, and
understand.
that would be
Yeah.
to be thinking about how we can be taking these principles and considering spaces that are not dense, you know, like the highest traffic areas within DC, right? Like how do these principles apply in, you know, in housing in Ward 7, for instance, or those sorts, you know, like those sorts of things, right? Like I'm just, you know, we can continue to brainstorm about it, but
Yeah, I
I
think
just think
it's
we've predominantly been focused on, you know, okay, around like Capital One Arena, what does that look like? And that's really important. But you know, I guess that's where I'm coming from.
no, I totally understand. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's not one group, and maybe it is sort of narrowing the scope of this. And but yes, I think that'll take some more fleshing out.
I think, and we can definitely. So I wonder. So I'm trying to think, because there are kind of two different aspects here. So one, um, it's offering our voice, but then what you're saying, Lizzie, is kind of even before that is, you know, hearing from other folks about kind of other aspects, other kind of other vulnerable groups and some kind of where there is also intersection as well. So uh, in so for racial equity and wealth inequity, I think there's like tons and tons of overlap with our work. But to your point, it's not just about these dense areas, but it's really everything. I mean, my hope is that these like buses, in my mind, like buses are even more important in less dense areas because the distances are further. And I think kind of this infrastructure policy document is even more important from that lens. But in terms of getting people from DDOT or around district government to come and speak, yeah, go, Lizzie. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, no, it's like I'm not anticipating our principles may change. I'm just thinking about forms by which it's more about like the second part of the document, right? Okay, well, how do we take these principles and apply them in vulnerable areas of DC? And
Huh?
so how do we create space to have conversations and to brainstorm with communities about, right, like how do we action on these principles? So it might not be that we're inviting folks to our meeting. It might be that we are going to meetings and saying, you know, our objective as a representative of MAC is to, you know, and our equity is supporting accessibility and supporting individuals with disabilities. We acknowledge intersectionality. These are the core principles. We want to hear from you about how this manifests in your community and in, you know, in your neighborhood. And are there things we're not thinking about? So it might not be that we're having speakers come in. It might be that we're going out and we're just opening it up for feedback in forums that we might not traditionally turn to.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so kind of what do you think the best way, like maybe should we just carve out some time at the next meeting to kind of brainstorm what, you know, where, yeah, who and what entities we should engage with.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll put that as an agenda item at the top of the next meeting. Cool. Great. Anything else? Okay, great. Well then, thanks everybody. I think we're good. So at this point, we can adjourn our August meeting of the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council, and we'll be back and forth by email. We've got a couple different documents that are going to start that we'll be turning on, and one new document that's going to start. And next time we will see y'all in September for our meeting, second Wednesday at 5:30. I was hoping that we could get, if we have Naomi for the entire meeting, then or everybody for the entire meeting, we can also spend some time making sure that this time is the best time for everybody, because my sense is that it might not be optimal. So anyways, I hope everybody has a great rest of your evening, and we will see you next month.
Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.
Yeah,
Take care.
take care,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.